Welcome back to the SQL Interview Questions Series. In today's session, we will be solving an interview question which is asked in a Facebook interview. It is related to one of the important topic in SQL, which is case when, where you are applying and understanding the multiple condition, and based on that you are doing an aggregation over the case when statement. So I hope now you are able to see the question on your screen. Just pause that for a few minutes. Try to read the question first, and then we will go into the query part. Okay. So the question says that you have to calculate the CTR, which is click-through rate for the app in 2022, and you have to round the result by 2 decimal places. So we will be having an event table in which for each specific app ID, you have the event type and you have the timestamp. Now, event can be of two types, click or impression. And in order to calculate the click-through rate, you have to need to separately know how many clicks and how many impressions are there for one specific app ID. So for example, if you just look at the example input, you have the app ID 123, which is of impression, which is like having 2 impression and 1 click. So the click-through rate will be 1 divided by 2, which will be 50%. If you look at the app ID 234, it is 1 impression and 1 click. So 1 by 1 is 100%. So when you are reading the question, this thing should be clear in your mind that based upon the example input, I have to do this kind of calculation to get my expected output. And if you are solving this kind of question in the interview as well, and you are not able to understand how the table should look like or something like that, so you can quickly open Excel, create a small sample data, and ask your interviewer that exactly this what they are looking for, like this is the table and this is the expected output. This will give the idea to the interviewer as well that you are able to understand what exactly they are asking for, right? So if you are able to create those sample data and explain them the approach, that will give the positive points about your skills. Okay. So first of all, do I need to calculate the CTR altogether for all the events? No. I am calculating the CTR specifically for the app, like all individual app. So I will be saying select. Now I need to select the app ID, right? And this is selecting from the events table, right? Now, in order to calculate the CTR, you have to know the count of impression and click separately. But right now, there is one column which is telling you the event type, impression, click, and whatsoever. So what if I will apply a case when here, and I will say, case when, if the event type is equals to impression, consider 1, otherwise else 0. And end is basically required in that sense. So what it will do, it will consider one column where whenever it is impression, it will consider 1. Whenever it is something else, which is basically click, it will consider 0. If you try to take a sum of this column, so it will always give you a sum of all those rows where it is showing you the impression value, which is 1 in that sense. So you will able to calculate how many impressions are there for specifically one app ID. And the similar thing you can do for the click as well. So I will create one more column. I'm creating it on the top of it because I know my click should be on the numerator. So I can say click and then 1, otherwise 0. So this will give you the count of this. Without showing you the aggregation, let me just show you how these two columns look like. So now if you see, the app ID 113 is showing the first 2 rows as 0 for the first column, which is click, because these are the impressions, and then 1 for the third row, which is the click. Now in the impression case, the first 2 rows are 1, and for the click it is 0. So now you can understand, if I take a sum of these 3 rows, for the first case when, it will give you 1, for the second case when, it will give you 2. So which is the sum of clicks and the sum of impression. If you are applying null in place of 0, for example, I will say, I will consider 1, otherwise I will consider 0. So in that case, you can also go with the count over the case when. So that is totally depend upon you, whether you are considering null or you are considering 0. But the idea behind both of these logic is to only consider clicks at one time an impression at the second case when statement. For example, I am going with this. Now, if I try to calculate the sum, which is an aggregation of this column, right? And I will call this as, for example, right now I'm not calling something because I will directly calculate the CTR in that sense. If I do that, again, it's a aggregation function. So you have to apply a group by on app ID. Now, if I go ahead and try to run the code, so you will see that explicitly you know that this is click, this is impression, this is impression, this is click, and this is impression again. Now, is there any specific thing mentioned about the time duration? Yes. So the app should be from 2022. So you have to apply a where statement. You will say where, if I extract, if I try to extract the year part from the function, extracting the year from the timestamp, no, from the timestamp column, it should be 2022 because my table can have 2021 data, 2023 data, and so on. So it will give you some specific rows. Now you need to calculate the CTR. I don't need the impression and click value separately. I need the division of that. So click divided by the impression. So I will just go here, add a slash between these two values, and it will give me the division of 1 divided by 3, 2 divided by 3 in order to get the correct value. If I run this, you will see the correct values. Now the problem is that 1 divided by 3 will be something in the decimal. So we have to make it in a percentage by multiplying it with 100.00. So I will say, since I also need to consider it for the 2 decimal values, so I will also apply a round, and then I will say 100.0, and then I will multiply it with the whole calculation which you are getting from here. And then I will say whatever you will get, that will be considered with a 2 decimal value. So you will see 33.33, 66.66. So this part is helping me to get the decimal values. This 2 and round is helping me to see the 2 decimal places. And I can call this as column as CTR. And if I try to run this, you will see that CTR for the app ID is 33.33 and 67.67. Obviously, it is not matching with the example output. Maybe because right now the data which you are looking at here, that is slightly different with one where we are running this query. And if I submit this code, you will see that the code is accepted. So in that way, the query is done and clearly able to work on that. So it's a very good question, combination of case when, aggregation, extract, group by, which are the major and important clause which is there in the SQL. So that's it from my side for this particular question. I will see you in the next one.